What an honor to be here. I am so excited to share with you my perspective on daring to be an ally and to MC such an incredible lineup. And look at this room, it is packed. And look at that sign. I mean, daring women should be lit up in lights, right? So let me begin by inviting you to think about a concept that we always overlook, I think. And it's about the domino effect. There are so many opportunities in our life to have an effect on another human being, whether it's a phrase that we say, or an action we take, or an action we don't take. And so, even though I haven't started a nonprofit yet, or a company, or invented something, and I'll emphasize yet, I have a story that relates to someone who dared to be an ally from the sea level that changed my life, and it had a domino effect. I believe those words have had me standing here today, at this moment on this stage. So about 4 years ago, this image was put up when my CVP, Chief Vice President of Microsoft Search Advertising, walked out on stage for the first time to meet his entire team at one of the largest Microsoft meetings called MGX. Now it's called actually MS Ready. And it was during a track day. So a track day is when each of the product lines break out and they have their own meeting. And I happen to roll up to Bing, and so he leads that entire business. Tall, white man, walks out on stage in front of 1,000 employees. To a woman on a motorcycle. I was immediately keyed in. What guy would choose a woman, I mean, a cool woman, to use as his image to introduce himself to everyone? I was immediately just keyed in. I wanted to know what he had to say. And he said 13 words that literally changed my life, but I didn't realize it at the time, but it did. And he said, no matter what gender, ethnicity, or sexual orientation you are, you belong here, and you have a role to play. And I started to vibrate in my own skin. I just couldn't believe I heard that phrase, sexual orientation, from a straight white man, that high up, in this large of a company. I hadn't heard that. And I couldn't understand why I started to cry. And I realized at that moment that I always expected not to be seen, valued equally, or recognized. I'm a member of the LGBT community, and I was so moved. I went up to him afterwards and I just thanked him. And he never forgot that moment either. And so, as a result, this was me just 4 years ago. Now, it's about outward appearance, yes, but what ended up happening, not just cool hair, but I literally and genuinely have done the best work of my life. And it's important, to be valued for your ideas, for really what you think and who you are. That ability to authentically express and pursue your passions and not waste any energy on trying to be what you think other people want you to be so you can be successful. That first photo is what I thought I needed to look like to come back to Microsoft. That's what I thought. But it's a different time. And I'm very thankful for that opportunity. And so, you can't be what you can't see. How many of you heard this phrase before? A few of you? Yeah. It was said by Marion Wright Ellman, a civil rights activist. And I want to share this photo. I'm sure a lot of you remember this photo. And it's so powerful to be reminded that when we go out in the world and we follow our passions and we just find the purpose that we're meant to be doing in the world, we inspire that awe. And that awe allows us to dream, to be that who we're intended to be. Maybe she might not be the first lady someday. Maybe she'll be the president of the United States. Who knows? But the point is that we have an obligation not just to ourselves to follow our dreams, but to dare to be an ally by being our authentic self. We give that gift to each other just by doing that. And so, I'll tell you a little quick story. I have a friend, Deborah, who I ride motorcycles with, but she also loves to sing, and she leads an all-girl Nirvana cover band in Seattle. And about a month and a half or so ago, she got to play at the Hard Rock in Seattle. And the gentleman lurking in the background playing the tambourine was unplanned and unannounced. He is the original drummer from Nirvana. And there she is, rocking out with him, backing her up. And she shared, like, she's not always confident getting up on stage, and she pushes herself to do that. It's not natural to her, but she loves it, she tries. I think everybody can identify with that, like not really quite feeling comfortable, but still doing it anyway and just trying your best. And you think that was the magical moment for her night, but it wasn't. What impressed me about Deborah is that afterwards, what she said is a woman came up to her and said, "I wish my little girl could have been here. She's 7 years old, and this would have changed her life." And similar with the little girl looking at Michelle Obama's portrait, right? So, I want to introduce something called the bystander effect. In sociology, how many of you heard this before? There's a few, okay, a fair amount. So let me go back one. So bystander effect, for those of you that don't know, there's like a phenomenon that when there's a large group of people and there's an emergency, there's like a diffusion of responsibility. No one like, oh, you'll get it. Oh, no, you'll get it. It's also similar. Have you ever been on an email string when someone asks for help and they send an email out to like 15 people and you start looking down like, who's on this string? Oh, they know more than I do. Or, and you just don't respond. You think someone else is going to respond. Well, this is similar when I think about when you see something and it's not quite right, you should say something, right? So the antidote, when I think about the bystander effect, and just in meetings, those microaggressions, maybe someone cuts someone off in a meeting and you don't say anything, take that as an opportunity. So the antidote really is when you're thinking about going to sleep at night, can you really live with the fact that you didn't say something or do something? It's that moment, that feeling responsible. If we all take that responsibility just a little bit, be that first person, everybody else will follow. And so the one that I really want to, land on is just be that first person. Be the one to do something or say something. So, if not us, then who? If not now, then when? I love this quote. It's said by John Lewis. He's a former freedom writer. So back in the 60s, you recall segregation on buses and everywhere else. Well, there was a law that was passed that desegregation on buses was now it was unconstitutional to segregate riding on a bus. But in the South, it was never enforced. And this gentleman and some of his white friends, white women, white men, black women, black men, there was 13 original freedom riders. They decided to get a Greyhound bus and charter it from the Northeast and ride through the South, all together. And you think about that, the society, every community that they drove through had this visceral reaction. It was incredible. If you read about this, the backlash was firebombs at the buses. They tried to even pin these people in while the police watched the bus burn. Luckily, they all got out, but there was like so many fights. There was like everyone fighting for the right to just ride together. And so This is just a really amazing example of this gentleman, John Lewis, who just believed that we need to stand up for ourselves. And then there was allies that helped him do so. And you fast forward so many decades, he was the very first Medal of Honor that Obama gave at his inauguration. So imagine Obama's getting inaugurated, right? And right after his inauguration, it's like 4 or 5 minutes later, he's putting the Medal of Honor around his neck, and he leans over and he says, "This is because of you, John." And you think about the domino effect again, right? You just never know when you stand up for yourself and for others what that can lead to. This is another, I love this. So my boss, her name's Nikki Smith. This is her favorite quote. And this is her hero, Madeleine Albright. And it really is an amazing sentiment. And I wanted to highlight this because about 3 years ago, Nikki Smith said to Kate Eisler, a really good friend of her, over drinks, "Why isn't there an event on International Women's Day?" And so they reached out to a friend, Sharon Harburg from Deloitte, and the three of them had produced the first International Women's event that had about 50 people the first year. And this past year, it was 500. And it was amazing. I mean, things that came out of it 2 years ago, at the end of the event, a woman said, "I am going to bring a nonprofit from Detroit to Seattle." The entire audience was asked, "What do you commit to doing? Be bold. What are your dreams?" So these three women that started this event, they helped other women follow their dreams. And so think about things that you might do. Might not be like starting an event, but there's so many ways that you can dare to be an ally. You could show up to these events. This is being an ally. We're being allies to each other right now. Also, Madeleine Albright, this is just a recent quote from her. When you see something, don't just say something, do something. And how do you know what to do, right? I invite everybody to get really curious about people. I joined a group at Microsoft as an ally, and it's the Embrace group, EMB, and then capital letters, race. And it's all about race. And one of the things that I learned, I would have never known this or thought about this, is that Black people haven't had colored Band-Aids to match their skin for decades. It's horrible, right? I didn't know that. And so exactly what I'm wearing right now matches my skin, right? And I had a colleague at an event just last week. I was helping her with rehearsals, listening to her rehearse. Beautiful Black woman from Chicago, Felicia Gardner. She was wearing this. And she just was talking. She didn't say, she didn't notice. But I noticed. Because of that, I was exposed. I joined another group. So to be an ally is about learning about others and just listening and getting those little angles that you would have never known before, right? And so this is Felicia. She got another option. They didn't have the headset for her, but I can guarantee you that AV team is going to think twice for the next event. Because when I went up to that gentleman and I said, "Don't you have one that matches her skin color?" He looked at me and he's like, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "Think about that." I said, "I think you guys need to order a whole set, like with ranges of colors." And he's like, "Let me go see what I can do." He's like, "I'll try and have one delivered by tomorrow." So this was the only option that we can get in a day's notice, but at least it was better, right? Felicia said to me something interesting. She said, "MJ, I didn't even think about it. Just like I didn't think about it when Rick said sexual orientation, like I expected not to be considered." She said, I expected not to be considered like that. I was just like, I can't believe that happened. So really, this is just one way. Just learn about other people's experiences, and then you can step in that gap. And I was happy to do that. I love this photo. This just reminds me of a ton of people trying to move in a direction together. And I've said this phrase for the last 3 years when I went to that first International Women's Day event called Be Bold, and it was this. Look around the room right now. Can I have a show of hands? And I think they're all over here, but I'm not positive. Show of hands of how many men are in the room. 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's give a round of applause to those 3 guys. So we had this great panel 3 years ago, and I said, this is all great. We're preaching to the choir, though. How do we make the choir bigger? How do we get men involved? And I think I landed in the last couple of years on just going out and telling our story and celebrating when we do have those allies that dare to stand next to us, right? And so they didn't ask me to plug this, but I think they very much so deserve some accolades for starting to show women on the cover, just like this last edition is amazing, right? So Michael did introduce me last October at the Seattle Interactive Conference, and he told me about this cover, how it was one of the most successful editions, and it was just so fantastic, and this is the direction we're moving in, and so Michael was really, really excited and very enthusiastic about it. And so I want to bring up this next quote. This quote was from a gentleman. The time has come. We need to honor daring women everywhere. We need to step up. And he doesn't know, but this is Michael Rossmer, associate publisher, Seattle Business Magazine. And he is normally up here talking, and it's very hard for him to sit back. But I just wanted to say thank you, because of him and his amazing staff, we are here today. He is a daring ally and a great example. And this was just him introducing me. He didn't know me before. He looked at the title, Inclusive Marketing, and he's like, inclusive. I want to introduce that person. And that's how we met. And so I just want to say thank you, Michael. I just want to give him a round of applause as well. So next up, this is something that I thought, what could we do today? What could we do right now? So I came up with this concept, Dare to be an Ally card. So there are people around the room that are going to hand out cards to each and every one of you, and I want you to put your name and your contact information on it, and then I challenge you, before you leave today, I need you to commit and exchange that card with someone else. And so then that is your ally. It's your ally card. Instead of get out of jail card for free, it's get out of doubt for free. I need a buddy to cheer me on. This is your ally card. So who's here ready to commit to being somebody's ally before they leave today? Right? All right, great. So don't forget the power of the domino effect and how your actions and your words, whether you step into that gap, learn about other people, be curious, and just enjoy how life unfolds. Because if you want to go fast, you'll definitely go alone. But if you want to go far, we'll go together. Thank you.